punches. And when our minister left in Boston, because our minister was named Ann Mason, but you have Ann Mason. I know, and it's just such a coincidence. I'm a pagan, so I believe, and I do. Okay. That's why it's in the bylaws of the pagan. My friends all call me pagan just because I wasn't president. They were joking. Yeah. My house is pagan. I'm more, actually, I'm not a heathen than a pagan. Yeah. There's a difference. So my
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Congregation and Gamar Chatima Tova for those of you who observe Yom Kippur. We're really glad that you're here today, as you heard us. My name is Douglas Futch. I'm a member of the Emerson Choir, the Choir Leadership Committee, the Worship Team, and the Endowment Committee. I offer a very special welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time, either in person or online. We're grateful you're here, and we look forward to getting to know each of you. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of each and every person through anti-racism, anti-oppression, support for the LGBTQIA+ community, working for reproductive justice, voting rights, and other issues as the world called us to side with love. We seek to build a beloved community not only here but in our surrounding area. Everyone is invited to join us for our social time following the service. Those here in person are invited to join us for light refreshments in the fellowship hall out this door on the first floor, and that those who are online stay online for a breakout after the service. At 11:25, please join us for religious exploration and small group activities. Worship reflections will be here in the sanctuary and additional offerings, and there are a ton of them today, so check your order of service. Each Sunday, we pause to light our chalice as a symbol of Unitarian Universalism and our commitment to be a beacon of love in the world. Our chalice lighting words today are by Vanessa Rush Southern. We light our chalice, symbol of our faith, for truth sought through a questioning heart and an attentive mind, and for love pursued through obstacles inside and outside our own human heart, and for forgiveness and all it entails, the place where truth and love meet and merge. Now, in the spirit of love and beloved community, let's greet and welcome each other to this new day as we share our congregational affirmation. We need not think alike to love alike. In the spirit of love and community, let's greet and welcome each other. Those of you in the sanctuary, feel free to mingle around and offer greetings. And online, please use the chat to introduce yourself or unmute to say hello.
So much to say this morning. I'm Rev Christina Branum-Martin, and I'm so glad to be with you this morning. So I want to acknowledge that many of you, most of you, probably got fake texts, fake emails from a fake email address stating they're me. And what I understand this morning is it's even gotten more layered, that my photo is even in it. Just know that all the information harvested is what we have on our website. A photo, our list of leadership. It started on Tuesday. Somebody pretending to be George Clear from a clearly not George Clear email address emailed the leadership, which is on our website, and said, I need a paper PDF copy of the directory. Could somebody send it to me? And clearly somebody out of kindness thought, oh, George needs a directory. Let me send it. The important thing is this. Realm that we use that holds all of our information was not hacked. Your financial information is secure. And know that text from me ever asking for a gift card of any kind will never be from me. I will only use the numbers here from the office, the cell phone that I use for work, and when you call the office, it goes directly to my cell phone, and so you can always reach me through the office number. And I will only ever use emersonuu.org, never a strange other thing or Gmail, and I'm just so sorry that everybody's having to hassle with it. I want to say one last point. At the other congregation I was at in Clemson, South Carolina, for the last 3 years, we had this happen 3 times. So somebody is working really, really hard, and I hope that they can find something else to do with their energy and hopefully bring some good to the world. What I did find from this whole situation is that I got to talk to 50 of you this week. So it has given me an opportunity to say hello, to get to know some new people, and thank you, Scammer, for that opportunity. In the spirit of coming together today, the opening words I chose are a little apropos. This is called To Risk, and it's actually in our hymnal as one of our responsive readings, and I'll just read it to you. To laugh is to appear the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. And to reach out for another is to risk exposing our own true self. To place our ideas and our dreams before the crowd is to risk loss. And to love is to risk being loved in return. To hope is to risk despair. And to try is to risk failure. To live is to risk dying. Let us join together with voice, with spirit, and with your body if you'd like to rise, singing together. Here we have gathered number 360 in our gray hymnal. We've come to the time of sharing the matters in our heart, the things that we carry and want to share together. We have stones that we put into a bowl of water. Those stones are heavy. They have weight, yet they are smooth. They are indicative of the things that we carry, sometimes that are hard and sometimes that are joyful. And the water receives them with ease. If you, during the week, find yourself needing someone to talk to, please know that the pastoral care team is here. You can reach out to me by phone, and you can also email at 3 in the morning if you need to, pastoralcare@emersonuu.org, and we'll get back to you right away. We placed 3 stones this morning to begin our joys, concerns, and sorrows. The first is in honor of the Cherokee and the Muskogee nations of the indigenous people who lived here before us. We place a second for those who worked on this land who were wrongly enslaved and labored here so long. And the third is for those who are hurting in conflict all around the world. The Scow family is in California, honoring the loss of Wynn's sister-in-law and Eric's aunt. And this Monday, while Wynn was in California, she had the chance to be with her father as her father left this world. It was serendipitous that they were already in California. What a blessing. There is a joy and a sorrow here that Darren Lyon says that on September 30th, he'll be leaving Georgia for a long-term residency at the Zen Mountain Monastery in New York. He is very excited, and he will miss all of you. Wow. Another stone for Riley Lyons. It is with great joy that after a year and a half, I am finally transitioning back into wearing a shoe on my right foot. If at this time there is somebody you are carrying in your heart, if you would like to close your eyes for a minute and think their name or say it out loud, I welcome you to do so now.
My sister Barbara in California.
Let us share as we close in the Buddhist prayer of loving kindness. These words are in your order of service if you need it. May we all be filled with loving kindness. May we all be free from harm and suffering. May we all be well in body, heart, and mind. May we all be at peace. Blessed be. Thank you, Douglas.
Hi there. I'm Mary Miller, and I am on the Social Justice Leadership Team. Often, underserved communities don't know how to effectively engage with democracy or government agencies to advocate for themselves. And in general, I would argue that that is everyone in the U.S. The Cobb County Democracy Center is our September partner organization for Share the Basket. They offer town halls, virtual info sessions, and focus groups to help citizen leaders and community members navigate state and local government, engage with elected officials, government agencies, public commissions, and boards. The Cobb County Democracy Center serves as a hub for community forums and educational opportunities on a variety of important issues. They educate on current legislation and provide policy advocacy opportunities on issues that affect ordinary people, such as affordable housing, redistricting, voting rights protection, access to medical and mental health care, access to reproductive health care, public safety, access to quality education, and issues surrounding food insecurity. And of course, as we head into election season, they help people to register to vote and encourage folks to get out and vote. Thank you.
Please know that your gifts to this community and also to the broader community in which we live are received with gratitude. Would anyone like to come up a little closer and see what we're going to share for our story today?
I have a story for all ages. Come on up. Anybody like to come up for a story? We've got a good story. As you can tell, we've got puppets today. We've got our puppet theater. Anybody want to take a guess at what the name of our story is? Yes, the hardest word. You guessed right. All right, a long time ago, the world was full of many fabulous large creatures. So can you guys think of any really large creatures that are in the world? What? Well, that's an actual, that's a make-believe one, but that's a really good one. Funny that you should bring that up. That's going to be coming back to us in a minute. Can you think of any real creatures that are in the world? Elephants, that's a really good one, yes. Any of you guys think of any more? Giraffe, that's a good one. I'm sorry, what'd you say? Dinosaurs, that's perfect. Yeah, woolly mammoths, dinosaurs, that's very good. And then there's also the make-believe ones, and of course you've already mentioned dragons, so let's go ahead and get into it, because this story today is about a dragon. A very large dragon named Ziz, and he was such a large dragon, phenomenally large. He was so big that he wasn't called Ziz, he was called the Ziz. And the Ziz was so huge, let me sit down, that when he spread out his wings, he blocked out the sun as if he were a dark rain cloud. Every time he flew over the town, the parents in the town would call to all the children, "Come in quickly before it rains." They all thought it was some kind of big storm, but it was just his wings. But this made the Ziz really sad. He loved children, and he didn't want to spoil their playtime. So the Ziz started flying around at night. When no one would notice that he made up the sky dark with his gigantic body, and this worked fine for a while. He was flying around every night, nobody noticed. And then one night, the big Ziz flew way too high, and he bumped into a star. Sizzle, pap, snap, bang, the star fell out of the sky and down to earth. And it burned this big hole in the ground, this huge, huge hole in the ground. It was this enormous hole, and he was like, stars are really hot. They burn a big hole in the ground. So how did he not break? Oh, well, he was so huge it didn't bother him. He's even bigger than a star. I know that doesn't make any sense, but he was. Take my word for it. So then the Ziz flew back up to the sky and grabbed a cloud to fill the hole with to fix it. He grabbed that cloud, brought it down, and it filled the whole hole. And it filled it up with rain. The cloud turned into rain once it was in the hole. And all the children in the town jumped into the new lake, and they were overjoyed to play in the water. So this time, this mistake turned out okay. He got kind of lucky with that one. It turned out to be a good thing. Everybody thought, oh, this is great. This has made us a pond. This is awesome. But Then the Ziz made a mistake he could not fix. He knocked over a tree that hit another tree, and that tree hit the garden. Oh, no. This is the garden that the children had worked so hard to grow. They'd worked really, really hard on this vegetable garden all year long, and the Ziz knew it. He'd watched them. Oh, no, I can't bring down a cloud to fix this, he thought. Every year they harvest the food in the fall. What will the children do this year? So the Ziz spread his big wings out and flew off to have a chat with the wisest owl in the forest. The owl lived way up in the tallest tree in the tallest mountain. There he is. "It is good to see you, but I'm wondering, what have you done this time?" the wise owl asked as soon as he saw the Ziz. This was not the first time the Ziz has come to visit him after making one of his mistakes. "I knocked over a big tree. It knocked over another tree, and that tree smashed the children's vegetable garden." "The children's garden?" questioned the owl. "Yes," the Ziz admitted, hanging his head very low. The wise owl thought about it for a minute, and then he said, "To fix this problem, you must search the world and find the hardest word." The Ziz flew down to the village to find the hardest word. He heard a child trying to go to sleep. The child did not want to go to sleep, and he thought he had found it. He flew back up to the owl and said, "I found the hardest word. Nobody wants to say these words, especially when you're a kid, and that's good night." But the owl looked at him, shook his head a little bit, and said, "Nope, that's not it. Keep looking." So the Ziz went to the village and came back to the owl with a bunch of other words. He kept trying. First one he thought about was like, "Hey, I've got one. This is it. It's got to be it. How about spaghetti?" So when you guys were little, did you say spaghetti in a funny way, like say pischetti or something like that? No, you didn't? You always said spaghetti the right way? Hey, good for you. That's a tough one to get out. And were there any words that you got messed up? Like, there were hard words like rhinoceros, Rumpelstiltskin, conscience. Can you think of any other hard words? You've got one? Oh yeah, like you're trying to say daddy, and you say dad. Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, you've got one?
Instead of pickles, I used to say pickles.
Pickles. Oh, okay. That's almost like saying pickles with an accent.
And then all were her name. I used to call her Ollie. Ollie. When I was little.
Oh, that would be kind of a hard name to say. Ollie instead of Ollie. Yeah. Did you think of a hard word? No? Okay. All right, so the Ziz was just at his wit's end. He thought, okay, I've tried all over the world. I've looked for all these words. I've come back to the owl and tried all these words, and no matter what, I just can't find it. So he went back up to the owl, defeated, and he said, I've looked everywhere, and I can't find the hardest word. I'm sorry. Well, the owl looked at him and said, what did you say? Did you say I'm sorry? He said, yes, I'm very sorry. I can't find the hardest word. And the owl said, actually, you did find the hardest word. The hardest word in the world to say is, I'm sorry, and you found it. So it's very hard to say, yes, sometimes, man. Right, not to pronounce it, but exactly.
If you make a mistake or hit someone, it's very hard to say sorry.
It is, but it always helps. It really does. So the Ziz was very, very happy that he had found the hardest word finally. He was thrilled, and he realized being sorry was the only thing he could do at this point. So he flew down the mountain back towards the children, and on his way, he went by his very own garden, got a huge basket, and he filled it up with all kinds of vegetables and fruits and stuff, and then he flew his way down to where the children's garden was to give it all to them and to say the hardest word to them. All right. All right, let's go ahead and sing our song of dedication.
In the spirit of prayer and meditation, I invite you now to feel your body weight in the chair, to feel gravity as a friend holding you still. You can take a deep breath. Spirit of life. Spirit of life and mystery beyond all naming, come to be with us. Come to be within us and break down barriers, to widen horizons and to help us be less judgmental. Help us to see the larger picture and the kinder conclusion. Help us to love and let live, to embrace and to forgive, to sustain and care. Help us to reach for our better selves, that we may love more and hate less, care more and reject less, that bound together by understanding that we may sustain each other through trial and tribulation, through joy and happiness, and through sickness and health. May the spirit of life within you call you to that common purpose of hope and fulfillment, renew and revive us as we seek a common holy ground for one and for all. Amen. I want to make sure Ginger White is not here. I don't see Ginger. Okay. I had invited Ginger to read this as a person who celebrates the high holy days of the Jewish faith, and I will check in with her to make sure she is okay. But I'm going to read this to you now. This is by Victoria Safford. It starts with, imagine this. On the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, every fall, every year, the people make their peace with one another and anyone they have wronged or slighted or injured in any way neglected in the past 12 months. This task is not to patch things up, to smooth things over, to reach a compromise, or sweep a mistake or uneasy memories under the rug. The task is not to just feel better. The task is ownership. The goal is truth for its own redemptive sake. I did this. I said this to you and I was wrong. I neglected this. I botched this. I betrayed you thusly. I demeaned you, whether or not you knew it. Or this is the truth in which both of us are living, and I ask you to forgive me. Imagine how many deep breaths it would take. Imagine how many doors you would have to knock on or phone calls you would have to make. How many letters and lunches or coffees? How many awkward moments with your children or your parents or even strangers like that cashier you spoke to harshly one day? Awkward is irrelevant. The task is not to comfort. It is about the truth. It is about wholeness and holiness, true restoration. Imagine this. Someone has been preparing to speak to you all year. They write to you to ask you a hard question. Perhaps in some way not conscious, you have even known that this was coming and you have been preparing. So finally, you open the door. And with shaky hands, there it is. What you thought you'd been longing for, but really you have dreaded. Someone asking for your forgiveness. The task is not about comfort, it is about the truth. Awkward is irrelevant. And you get to choose now. You have to choose whether or not to participate in this relationship of restoration. Abandon the pleasant piety that claims knee-jerk forgiveness and unquestioned moral course. You get to choose which way to be right in this case, between you as persons and anyone and all that you might call God. What response will make the world more whole is the question. Imagine. Something yearns in us to come round right. Something creaky, rusty, heavy, even maybe calcified within us tries, in spite of all of our fears and self-deceptions, to turn and creak and turn again and come round a little truer. Something in us stretches towards conversion and restoration. Imagine healing, holy, and from within. There ends the reading. Today's sermon is in preparation for us to talk about covenant and meeting an apology through understanding, love, and ultimately hopeful forgiveness. And our word, I'm sorry, with our fun puppets, was a way for us to introduce that this is not easy for us to say sorry, just as one of our wise kids said openly. It's really hard to say. And I wonder what these walls would say if they could speak, having been present and holding us in community for all these years. These walls have heard forthright sermons. They've heard tender wedding vows right here, eulogies of family and friends no longer with us, and the cries of babies dedicated. These walls have heard long debates of tedious things through congregational meetings, and they have heard your whispered prayers, the names of people that come from your lips. They have also heard the silent wishes of welcome from a newcomer who boldly enters this sanctuary for the first time. These walls embrace us with pregnant possibility. We gather in these walls every week, embraced by companionship and emotional connection, to be connected to what is life-giving out of a need to be healed. Yes, healed. For at some point in our lives, all of us have been brokenhearted. We have been filled with grief and anger and desperation, and we have each needed to be welcomed in as an incomplete, in process, imperfect being. And this welcoming in, this embrace through our connections to each of us here makes this sacred space. And you know, we share this space intimately, kind of side by side, and we are close enough, most of us in this room, to reach out and bump somebody next to us. And if we were to reach out with our hands, we would reach out with love, enough that this closeness, this vulnerability necessitates a covenant, a collective promise that we strive for that guides us as we navigate this intimacy. And we strive to uphold this covenant. These walls have been witness to that covenant. And you know what? It has been witness, these walls, to our imperfections and our lack of reaching it, because we are imperfect. There's a book from the Unitarian minister, Reverend Peter Fleck, and it's titled The Blessings of Imperfection. Can you imagine? He was ordained as a Unitarian minister in the 60s, and he and his wife Ruth came to the U.S. after the occupation of their native Holland by the Nazis. And they lived in the U.S. for the remainder of their lives. Reverend Fleck's theology finds meaning and life lessons in science. It is in one of those essays that I read at a tender age of 19, when he wrote about the study of DNA by the biologist Lewis Thomas. And when I was 19 and 20 and 21, I was studying biology and philosophy in college, and they were sequencing DNA for the first time. I felt amazed to see the printout of DNA put up on the wall down the entire hallway of the chemistry building. So you might hear about DNA in the future from me. Reverend Fleck wrote that biologists observe that we as humans are built to make mistakes. In our DNA itself, we are coded for error. That is, we are coded for being imperfect. We learn, as we say, by trial and error, or maybe why not trial and rightness or trial and triumph? And he concludes that the old phrase puts it this way because in real life, that's the way it's done, trial and error. In other words, progress requires error. What persuasive words those are. In response to our imperfections, he seems to say that the very thing that makes us more perfect is our mistakes. Indeed, the capacity to leap across mountains of information and to land lightly on the wrong side represents the highest of human endowments. That is, of course, if you land on the wrong side, having something to say and learn from it. Reverend Fleck pondered that this principle does not apply to humans only. This permeates creation itself. It is the very stuff of which our physical evolution is made. Take the amphibians. Imagine this. The first amphibian to crawl out of the water and onto land may not have done so because their feet were so strong, but because the gills were so weak. The imperfection of the gills made the first amphibian into an animal of a higher order. Can you imagine the parents' distress at having an amphibian offspring that was so conspicuously unable to live a normal aquatic life? I can imagine those parents saying, "There's obviously something wrong with him." And imagine how he's going to be jeered at by his peers as he crawls off out of the water. Now, do you think that amphibian had any idea of what it was doing or what was happening? Perhaps all that amphibian was feeling was a sense of wrongness, but it led to so much. Humans are the only creatures on the earth to whom it is given to be aware of our wrongness, the error, the imperfections in themselves to react to that wrongness, and our tendency to overcome it. If it cannot be overcome, to accept it as inevitable, we have to learn to live with it, and that resolve allows us to make one's peace and live with inevitable imperfection as a creative act. I am reminded that as a congregation, we are called to make peace with ourselves and with each other as we strive up that covenant, and that sometimes we fall short. We must remember that this community is a place where we can practice being together in ways that are authentic, loving, and meaningful. And we must practice it because it is not easy. Being together in community is not something we just come to know how to do. It is what we strive to teach our children, to learn how to be together in community. I remember that my oldest daughter, who's now an adult, tried to play the piano in our living room and got so frustrated. She said she didn't sound the way she intended to in her mind. It sounded so much better. I said it takes a lot of practice. Slowly, over time, you learn to make music. A lesson to be learned throughout our whole lives, and I certainly know that a lesson I need to learn myself, to be easier on myself, because I fall short too. Michael McCulloch published a book called Beyond Revenge, The Evolution of the Forgiveness Instinct, of which he analyzed a huge amount of social scientific data about studies of animals in biology and brain chemistry to help us understand how revenge and forgiveness came together to have an important part in human life. He explores in this book how religious and therapeutic mindsets have come to imagine revenge as a disease in our civilization. Can you imagine? How could we make forgiveness into something that was helpful for us? He says revenge hasn't been seen as natural. It hasn't been seen as biologically driven and where we are prone to certain circumstances, and at the same time that evolutionary biology has given us the advantage of the survival of the fittest. It is forgiveness that is that transcendent quality that is a cure for revenge, the one that takes over the animal world. But forgiveness for us has helped us as human beings triumph. His research stresses that science is revealing that human beings are more instinctively equipped for forgiveness than perhaps we've given ourselves credit for. Here's an example. Imagine you're out on a hunting expedition. And survival and triumph in this hunting expedition will help you save your whole community. It will bring you food. Imagine you are with fellow hunters on the track of an animal that will help you feed your families, and you have to work together as a team. And that young novice hunter is with you to learn the task. Well, imagine this. The youngster makes a noise and a crack with its foot, and the animal runs off. That youngster let you down, but it wasn't intentional. It was a mistake, and the group gathers round and forgives him. Cooperation is needed for our survival. McCulloch concludes that our ability across the animal kingdoms and many animals' abilities to cooperate is that which undergirds our ability to forgive each other for our occasional mistakes. So this biological foundation for forgiveness is a way for us to calm that revenge instinct in ourselves and embolden our forgiveness intuition. Many religious, ethical, and legal codes emphasize retribution. And for those of us living in this country, we know that retribution is often what we turn to in times of war or conflict. Because sometimes retribution feels like justice. But at the same token, our religious organizations and our artistic expressions highlight and hold up forgiveness. These elements of revenge and forgiveness are not only in our institutions, perhaps they are also part of our basic psychology. Reverend William F. Schultz, who was the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association during a time of the 90s and early 10s, later became the president of the U.S. Office of Amnesty International. And he wrote these words. They touched me. He said, "We are all tempted in the face of our failings to lash out at others. But from a religious perspective, the appropriate response to the recognition of our own demons is not to demonize others. It is to seek out our common bonds. And part of religion's task is to help us understand what those best selves can look like. So each week, here as a community, within these walls, we each try to see what our best selves can look like. And we do stumble along the way because we are imperfect. We are vulnerable and we make mistakes and we hurt each other's feelings, even when we don't intend to. And sometimes it gets personal and painful. But given our sometimes selfish actions, which then can be followed by an instinct for revenge, isn't it a congregation such as ours that living in community invites us back into open and honest and effective, respectful communication? I would say the answer is yes. For in our reading earlier, to reach out for one another is to risk exposing our true self. And in so doing, we risk failure. We as a congregation need each other. And we come here each week to be together in order to find the light in ourselves and in each other for connection. I think that that is what religious community is all about, that there is not a contradiction in trying to overcome imperfection or to strive for perfection. For isn't it our striving for perfection that perhaps leads us to our mistakes that brought us to becoming more fully ourselves? There was a book that I had as a kid. You might remember it. It was I'm Okay, You're Okay. I had a poster on my wall, bright orange and lime green and the lovely 70s colors, that said, "You're okay." I can still remember it. I wonder if it even glowed in the dark. So today, as we acknowledge that Yom Kippur is a time in which we come together, and those of the Jewish faith make those phone calls or knock on the doors and ask for forgiveness, I want you to remember that these walls hold us. And if we were to ask what these walls would say, perhaps we could hear this whisper: "You're on the right track. You are loved." Perhaps we would hear it say, "I'm sorry." And perhaps we might hear in return, "I forgive you." Amen and blessed be. Let us sing together number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
On the road from
As we extinguish our chalice and say these closing words, I share with you from Robert Mabry Doss. For all who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. And for all who seek a right path, may that way be found. And may you find the courage to take it step by step. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth or the warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again.
We hope you've been nourished in heart and mind today in our service. Please remember that we'll have service reflections here at 11:25, and take a look at your bulletin for all the other offerings. We'll see you in the fellowship hall soon. And as our service ends, we are here to say my favorite line, "Go now in peace and take peace wherever you go."